Welcome into a new This Week in UNC Baseball with head coach Scott Forbes. I'm Tommy Ashley. Of course, Johnny T-Shirt is our sponsor. And no Grace Nugent today. She has to be in class.
Oh, man.
There are times where I wish I was still a college student. There were times that I'm glad I am not. Let's talk a little bit of baseball, Coach Forbes. Is a nice diversion to talk about your program. A lot is going on this fall. We got to see you against Walter State, and then, of course, the two World Series games on Monday and Tuesday against each other. But I want to start with a fun question. Nick Saban, you got to talk to him. I want to know, you talk a lot about heart rates and keeping your heart rate down. What was that conversation like when you had that opportunity back a month or so ago?
You know what? I think I did pretty good. I was nervous, a good nervous, but I knew so much about him. It didn't surprise me that he was like he was, really humble, knew a lot about baseball, knew about our baseball program, was very complimentary of it. Had a connection there because Coach Gaines's brother-in-law kicked at Alabama, Riley's brother. So we got to talk about that a little bit to break the ice, and we spent about 20 minutes, and my heart rate was probably going pretty good, and then it leveled off the more I was around him. Just a guy like you, just a normal guy, just the best college football coach ever.
Yeah, it's cool when you meet your heroes or the people you look up to, and they are what you expect. It is devastating when they are not.
That's a great statement. I mean, he was phenomenal, and I've tried to model a lot of what we do in this program after the way he ran his programs, and he changed a lot throughout his career. And I asked him some different questions, and he took the time to answer those questions genuinely. He was very genuine with the answer. So it's something I'll never forget for sure, and hopefully I can maybe talk to him again.
Yeah, we saw the picture, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, the man is in." Christmas has come in September for Coach Forbes.
It was so awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it very cool, but a lot has happened since then. But on the baseball side, you had the opportunity to work with your guys. Obviously, you're with them all the time, but during fall, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And one thing Grace and I were talking about was sort of the second year steps or the evolutions that some of your young players, specifically young pitchers, need to make. And Folger Boaz is one of those guys. He's been in the program, but he needs to take that step to provide for you. And you got Walker McDuffie and even Cam Pageant, who didn't throw a lot this fall. Just what have you seen specifically from those three that sort of can elevate them this year into a role that you can count on daily or weekly?
Yeah, definitely. I'll start with Walker. We counted on him all year. So really with him, it was just refining, working on a third pitch. He pitched a ton for us. We did have to shut him down this summer, so we were to build him back up, and he's pitched all fall. Hadn't let him throw his slider a lot, which has been frustrating for him because that's the pitch that he can go to at any time to get a swing and miss or get a strikeout. But we want his fastball command to improve. We wanted to see if he could possibly be a starter as well. We're still going to do what's best for our team, but he's got a good changeup in the field for it. We just didn't have many opportunities last year to throw it because it wasn't close to where the slider was. So that has been a success. He's worked really hard at that. He's got to continue to work at that. He's in better shape. He's more durable. I do think he could be a starter, but if he ends up being a reliever, he's also going to be able to pitch more than he did last year, which is good for us. Cam, we had to shut down. He had a little bit of a setback, slight shoulder issue, but he's fine. Just wasn't worth him ramping back up to where he would have needed to ramp back up to pitch for us this fall. So he's going to start his throwing back up. The biggest thing with Cam is his changeup. He's got to get back where he can throw. It's a really good off-speed pitch. His velocity has ticked up, Tommy, as you have seen. So continue to improve that changeup, make it swing and miss, and his fastball command. Boaz, man, he's been phenomenal. Obviously, he had the surgery. So last year he still pitched. He showed some signs of getting back to where he was his freshman year. But pitching in the Cape, pitching in big games in the Cape. I think he started the championship game maybe when they won it out there.
He did.
And then this fall, they worked really hard. Him, Coach Gaines, and Coach Howe, he's added a cutter, which is a really good pitch. I mean, our hitters and our catchers he just didn't have that pitch. It's hard. It's 87 to 90. His velocity's back up. His command's improving. Still got the slider and the changeup, but he's becoming more of a complete pitcher, and I'm really excited for him because I think he's going to pitch a ton for us and get back to where he was, but better than what he was even his freshman year. So that's exciting.
As a pitching coach, and Gaines obviously is your guy, but as a staff, what is the challenge to get young pitchers, specifically high school pitchers, that come into your program that can sling it, that can throw in the 90s or whatever, and to realize the importance of these off-speed pitches? Because we've talked about this a lot, how devastating a changeup is, and I don't think young guys think about that. They want to gas everybody, and then they come to college and it doesn't work that way. Y'all's process into getting these pitches developed so these pitchers can actually be good on a higher level.
Yeah, ironically, it's funny you asked that question. Zach Gallen stopped by yesterday. He was in town doing a golf fundraiser, and he talked to our pitching staff. And his big thing was he was talking about catch play. He was talking about manipulating pitches. And at the end of the day, you can look at all the analytics, and you can look at the stuff on the board, but you still have to throw the ball where you want to throw it, and you have to throw it with conviction, and you have to be able to change speeds. Obviously, you see some guys on TV that are like stupid, crazy velocity up to 103, 104. Those still, they're not all like that. If you're watching these starters especially, the starters, they have to give and take. They can't just throw a fastball. Even for us, our guys can hit 98. If you don't have anything else to go with it, because that's what we train off these machines. So our guys, the best thing, when we have an older, physical, strong group of hitters, they find out quickly that they do have to have a good off-speed pitch. They do have to slow the bat speed down. They have to be able to keep a hitter off their fastball. Fastball command still number one. But it's a lot of it is learning in these scrimmages. They learn against really good players, and that's why it's so important to have good players and to have depth. And you can remain a little bit older through the transfer portal now, positionally especially, so the guys are physical and they're stronger. But also, making them understand you don't have 5 all-speed pitches. You just need one that you can throw whenever you want, and then if you are lucky enough to master that one, then you can go to another one. But it's something that we work extremely hard on here. Spent a lot of time with DeCaro and Lynch on that. They're shut down now, but we kept them throwing just specifically Ryan Lynch to work on his changeup and DeCaro to work on spinning the ball better. And if you watch the Walter State game, his analytics on his breaking ball, his curveball, and his slider, DeCaro's were really, really good. So that was we accomplished something with him for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, clearly those are your top 2 guys. Let me ask you about a couple guys that have been injured, were out injured last year. And I know we probably shouldn't talk about injuries too terribly much, but Percival and Mateus, it's tough for older guys to have to go through those surgeries. But where are they, and what can anybody expect from them in 26?
Yeah, Tommy, talking about injuries now is a normal thing with the velocity spikes and the guys specializing and too early and not playing multiple sports. It's just going to continue to happen. But thankfully for us, if it does happen, we have the best doctors and the best trainers in my opinion, any college team in the country, and our guys come back stronger. Look at Knapp, look at Boaz, look at Dalton Pence. Some of them were injured before they got here. Some of them got injured when they were here. So there's no true reason. Some of it, we don't know what it's just stronger, harder, that type of thing. But those guys they're looking great. Their rehab's great. They're both going to be 100% go ready in the spring, which is exciting for us. I don't think you're going to see any setbacks, knock on wood. I think they're going to be ready to go in February when we open up, and I think they're going to both be big parts of our pitching staff.
So you've got the veterans, you've got experienced guys. What freshmen really stood out for you? I know we heard a lot about Boston, and he's not a freshman, and he kind of took a beating on Tuesday in the World Series. But
Mm-hmm.
what about your younger guys that have impressed you, and maybe they can fit into this rotation?
Yeah, it's going to be a really hard pitching staff to break that top 10. It's very competitive. But we do have some young guys that have competed hard and thrown well. Glauber stood out, a freshman for us. He enrolled a year early, like DeCaro, very talented, very competitive, delivery that he can repeat, pretty athletic. I think he's got a chance to pitch for us as a freshman for sure. Jackson Rose, a left-hander from Georgia, continues to get better and better. What people don't realize, even a guy like Boston, so Boston threw against Walter State. He had velo maybe up to 98. Well, because of the fall, we're not doing the same things on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday that we would be doing in the spring. So, he's running more, he's lifting more. You probably aren't going to see that velo unless you have that full week in the fall, especially because we're pushing our guys much harder. But I would say those two guys, especially those two freshmen, have really shown. And Talon Holiday is very interesting as a freshman because he can just spin the ball. I mean, it's like a elite slider / breaking ball and cutter. The spin is up to 3,300. And he can locate it. It's a swing and miss. And I like to talk to our good hitters, get their feedback. So I think it's a pitching staff that's going to be fun to just put together. Roles can change. You mentioned DeCaro and Lynch are clearly our best two, but guys are nipping on their heels. Boas had a really good fall, and me, Tommy, I'm going to throw. I don't care what you did last year. If Folger Boas goes out there in preseason, he's our best pitcher. He'll start Friday. Or if Jackson Rose takes a jump, that's the great thing about having depth and competing. You got Percival, coming back, and Maddie in the bullpen. There's always a couple of surprises. So I think hopefully we can match up with guys and not have to lean on just the same guys over and over and over, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, you got plenty of time to work on it, and then you play so many ball games.
Yep.
And those opportunities are there. And you're right. Look, if folks are listening to this and haven't listened to Scott Forbes a lot, he will play whoever if they deserve to play. It is not you're the old guy, you go out there. It's never worked that way for you, Coach Forbes. How have you managed to keep everybody, and I'm not saying everybody happy, but keeping the program and the standard with that mindset that it doesn't matter what you did last year. It's what you do now and what you have done preparing for it. Because a lot of times guys come in entitled or guys get entitled, and you've handled that well.
Yeah, I think you're crippling kids even in high school if you don't play the best players. Now, if the part of being one of the best players is also, taking care of your business away from here. So, we have high standards. Our culture is really, really good. Our guys know, hey, you got to go to class. You got to represent us well off the field. You got to work extremely hard, and you have to meet our standards. And if you don't, there's no way you're going to be in the lineup. But at the end of the day, we feel like culture matters. It really does, and nobody's perfect. But once you establish that culture, guys figure out quickly, this is how it's done here, and either I'm going to do it that way or I can go somewhere else. And I learned that very quickly playing for Coach Fox at a small Division III school. But I'm still glad I did. And I make it very clear. We make it very clear as a coaching staff. It's always going to be about the team. Every email we send is from Bo Schembechler, the team. Everything's going to be about the team here, and the team's going to come first. And every decision is going to be made about the team. We love you individually, but at the end of the day, it's about our team and our team success. All together, coaches, players, support staff. And that may, if your individual goals or accomplishments or getting drafted really, really high come before those, it's just not going to work for you here at UNC. But that just, that's just not an issue right now with our program, and hopefully it won't be. And those guys, if they come in here and they're that way, they're not going to be here very long. And you can do both. We went to see Michael Bush. Michael Bush, we were so good when he was here because he wanted to win. He was our best player. Vance Honeycutt, now Gavin Gallagher, Jake Knapp, these guys, they want to win first, and then they work so hard to help the team win. And the way I explain it to players is if you're having a great year and you're doing everything you're supposed to do, obviously that helps the team, but that also helps you when it comes down to your professional side, because we do have that as well. But, I enjoy at this level that humility piece, because it hits us. It's hit me before as a coach, hit me as a player. It hits these guys really quickly. That first week you come in here, you might have turned down $1 million. You might have been perfect game ranked in the top 10. And then all of a sudden you got this Division III shortstop that you look up after about 3 days like, holy crap, this guy's better than I am. And that reality sets in quick. So there's no politics at this level where there should not be.
Absolutely. We're talking with head coach Scott Forbes of North Carolina Tar Heel baseball. Speaking of, you sort of went there with leadership and all that. When the roster cycles like it does, obviously Jake Knapp not there. Ahmad came in. He was a big part of that last year. You have guys that come in for 1 or 2 years now, specifically a guy like Macon Winslow coming in. He's played a lot of ball down the street, and now he's a centerpiece for you. That leadership aspect of it in the portal era when you're also cycling the roster pretty heavily. I mean, Gavin obviously is your guy, but how do you manage that, and what do you look for when you're bringing guys in like a Winslow, like a Schaffner?
Yeah, Tommy, player retention is extremely important for your culture in today's landscape. So that's our top priority, is to make sure. I mean, we have some guys leave, obviously, but most of the guys that leave here, they just want to play. The relationships are still good, and they just want to get on the field. But, you have your Vance Honeycutts, your Gavin Gallaghers. Even last year we had guys that stuck with it and were still leaders, even though they didn't get on the field a ton. You look at someone like Reese Holbrook, you look at someone like Carter French that's still here. So you still have to have those guys, and you have to use the portal. One of the biggest mistakes was that I made as a head coach in my first year, not taking anybody off the portal. And that's probably why we went 28-27. We just didn't have the weapons that we needed that were older players. But to answer your question about a guy like Macon Winslow, it's very similar to Kane Kepley. If a guy's a leader, he's a leader, and you have to make them understand that this could be only your first. This is your first year here, and it might be your only year here. But this is your team just as much as it is Gavin Gallagher's team. Gavin's been here, but it's the same thing. If somebody comes in and puts Gavin on the bench, that's not my issue. That's Gavin's issue. He's got to work harder and get that spot back. But when you have a young man that's caught in our league like Macon, it's a leader. I just explained to him, like, be a leader. Don't be afraid to speak up. The guys are going to respect you with how you carry yourself, and if you're a good teammate, which you are. And Kepley was a great example of that. He did a really good job. Parks Harbor, those guys, you have some guys that are already here, but Gavin was close to Macon already. They played together. But Macon's not the only one. We got some other transfers in here that were leaders. They were their team's best players. You look at Paulson, you look at Schaffner, you look at McGinnis and Heineck, the position player transfers, they were where they came from. They were their team's leaders. So I explained to them, hey, look, don't tiptoe around. Like, this is your team just as much as everybody else's team. We're all working towards the same goal. So go ahead and lead. So that's something we work hard on. And that's my job as a coach. And talking about Coach Saban, he talks about a lot in any book that he's written or somebody's written about him, is it's our job as coaches to coach those guys into being the best leaders they can be.
It also speaks to your culture of guys that are there, that have been there forever, like a Stokely last year, like you mentioned, Reese Holbrook, that have accepted people coming in and being a leader. I don't know if accepted is the right word, but you know what I mean. I mean, it's tough when this new guy shows up, and he's gonna do that. So it's
think about it. I explain to the kids all the time, or recruits we offer, when you get here, the players care, but the guys that are here, like Gavin Gallagher cares about two things when you walk in here. If he's competitive and he's been here and he's won. He's been to Omaha his first year. Second year we should have won, but we won an AC championship, had another great year. He wants to know, can you help us win? And then, are you a good dude / great teammate? So if you pass those two, go ahead and dive right into it. And obviously you might be a different leader. Winslow might be more like Kepley, more of an example guy. But then again, I might need making Winslow to be more of a verbal leader because of his position. So that's where we work on it. Our school has a really good leadership academy as well that helps these guys. But we work hard on trying to help them become better leaders while they're here for sure.
Speaking of Gavin, you move him off third base because Cooper Nicholson comes in. Talk us through that decision and the importance of getting Nicholson, at least from what I understand in the fall, getting that bat in the lineup. And Gavin, obviously he's a middle infield guy early on, but the willingness, I guess, to move for the betterment of the team. I talk about puzzle pieces all the time. You put a puzzle together.
Yeah. Well, Gavin, if you ask Gavin, he would rather have been playing short or second the whole time. That's his normal position. So he was playing third for the betterment of the team. And I talked to Gavin before we went to the Cape and said, hey, he wanted the opportunity. I wanted to give him the opportunity. I felt like for this year's team, he was only going to play third based on what we had tried to put together if a bunch of guys failed. We had planned on Gavin being in the middle, either at short or second. And he has worked his tail off defensively. Which is so good for Gavin, too, because I think Gavin's a big leaguer. I think he's one of those guys that can, Lord willing, can play in the major leagues a long time because he can play third, he can play second, he can play short, he can play left or right, just an ultimate utility guy. Heck, 2 years ago we joked because he was playing first base at the end of that LSU game. But he's worked really hard. We always, our thought process was as a staff, we can always move Gavin back to third. He's been there. He doesn't need it in the fall. He can go back there in the spring for a week and he'll be good. So let's just get him in the middle. Let's put him and Schaffner both at short, let them battle that out, and knowing that most likely from what we've seen, those two guys are going to be in the middle. For sure, who's going to play short, who's going to play second, that hasn't been decided yet, but they're going to complement each other extremely well out there. And your hope is, we have other guys that can play the middle, but the hope is that your infield stays pretty stable the entire season, but you got to stay injury free. You got to have a little bit of luck. But Gavin's, he's also taken another. He's just a pleasure to coach. Does everything the right way. Practices hard. Great student. Leads the way. He has really helped us improve this fall because of not only is he the best player on the field, he's really become one of our best practice players as well.
We saw Carter playing first, I guess, out of necessity, really, but he can do it. And then you got Paulson pretty much locked in. You played the man 13 innings against Walter State at first base. I think that's what, 12 or 13. But, I assume that those corner positions, I mentioned Nicholson and Paulson, it can change, but you seem pretty set there.
Yeah, it could change for sure. Ron Kellis has worked really hard. He's had a really good fall offensively. Played a lot of third. He can also play an above average first. So I'm always thinking like, okay, this is what we think we're going to start with. What if somebody gets hurt? Whatever. You want to have that plan in place. So I do feel like we've got some pretty solid depth. AJ Terry's a plus defender. He can play second, short, and third at a high level. He's a freshman. Got to get stronger with the bat, but he doesn't concern me at all defensively. And Rom can move a little bit. So we've got some depth there. Lee Sowers, obviously specifically second base, but he's improved as well. Cooper so far has just really shown he was a second baseman / shortstop at his junior college. Coach Weir's recruited him, flew out there, saw him, said he's an offensive second baseman, so he wasn't wrong on that. But he's physical. He's gotten bigger already and stronger. He came to summer school. So we've worked really hard with him all fall at third. And he's definitely the leading candidate currently just because his defense has been so good. But Rom is right there competing with him because his bat's been pretty consistent the entire fall.
Outfield. I feel like it's going to be the first time in a long while where you don't have known and maybe known to everybody on the outside.
Yeah.
You had Vance forever. You had Kane Kepley, I think Kane Kepley has an argument to be just as good center fielder as Vance was. We can debate that off air. But I mean, the ability to have those guys erased a lot of issues across the whole outfield grass. Your take on this year's group, Hull and center, and then you've been known to flip around on left and right during the season by necessity or by whoever's doing well. But what do you think out there?
Very competitive out there. I mean, Owen's the leading candidate to play center field. He had to play right at George Mason. Their center fielder was older than him. I think he went in the third or fourth round. But he's an elite athlete, a lot like Vance, a plus runner, big kid size. He's only going to continue. He works. He stole 42 bases. He'll spend a lot of post fall on his route work in center field. Coach Jackson does a phenomenal job with our outfielders. It's amazing. A lot of people think outfielders, they can't get better. They can get better. And he has a really good system with getting them out there with their angles. Not being afraid to lose the ball when the ball's hit and they have to go directly back. So that elite speed and he can steal bases, he can bunt. It's going to be hard to move him out of center field, but how it goes. That could happen, but he's a leading candidate, and he also fits that profile of a Kepley and Vance with that elite speed, closing speed, where if he does make a mistake, he can catch up for it with his speed. He's the fastest player on our team. Really big draft prospect as well. I'm hoping for him. He puts together a great year. He was a draft eligible sophomore. He turned down some money. Thankfully, we got him here from George Mason. The corners, man, it is a big time battle. I mean, you have to start with Carter French. He's, we're letting his shoulder get better because he's coming off a slight shoulder injury. So that's why I played him more at first. But he's a plus defender at all three. His exit velocity has gone up tremendously. Even in BP, he's hitting the ball 100 plus, which is why, he was mostly a singles guy. He's an ultra competitive kid. And he has great at bats, and he's hard to pitch to. And then you got Perry Hargett, who's back. Sawyer Black, that's back. They both improved. They've both gotten better, so they're competing. Tyler Howe and Jay Nunez are freshmen that have had really good falls. Tyler Howe is a left-handed hitter, and he stole 90 bases in high school. Just an old school baseball player. I would comp him some to Casey Cook. May not be a burner, but a really good base runner, good instincts, can steal a base. And I could be wrong, but I think he's really going to hit, as well as some of our other guys. So the competition will be Michael McGinnis, grad transfer. You look at his numbers. His fall may not be great, but he's also making some changes with Coach Weirs to be ready for the velocity here. But he played at Georgia State in a really good conference, hit right at 300, 50-plus RBIs. So there's an older guy. So I think we might, to answer your question, Tommy, I think in the corners especially, we might be to match up some against lefties and righties. You got our two catchers as well, like you talked about, Winslow and Hynek. But the outfield is going to be competitive.
What keeps you up at night with this group you've got here? What stresses you out or keeps you thinking the most?
Man, I think I'm going to be like that no matter what until I stop coaching. With this team, I would say, obviously third base steal. We have some work to do. We got to continue to improve there. Gavin was just so good over there and so athletic. I think the thing I think about the most is probably our pitching, the roles. Like, I don't know if it's going to be exactly where we want it when the season starts, or we're going to know exactly until the season gets going. So when that happens, sometimes from the pitching standpoint, you may have, for instance, Walker McDuffie pitching on the weekend, but then he comes out of the rotation and he goes to the closure role. So that's probably what I'm thinking the most is, okay, how are we going to put the guys in the right spots on the mound to get the most out of this staff? I feel pretty good about our position depth, but there's always some things. I would say sitting here right now, that it comes to my mind is I want us to – the level of defense is not where I want it yet, top to bottom. And it's pretty good, but I want to be elite defensively. So I would say that would be the main thing. Not necessarily on the mound, more like range, not giving extra outs, because you just can't do that in our league.
That's why I love talking to you because it's no coach speak. I mean, it's just straight real there. And it was a great answer. Let me ask you a question I've always thought, and I'm going to let you get out of here. But the importance of having a left-handed arm, a solid left-handed arm, or two or three in the bullpen. It seems like some years, Dalton was
Yeah.
that guy, but then there's been years where you haven't had that, or some teams haven't had those options. How important is developing one of those lefties we've talked about to be a guy in the bullpen, not just a guy, but a guy?
Yeah, I think it can be very important. It depends somewhat on if you have righties that can dominate lefties too. Like in 2013, we were 59-12. We didn't have a lefty out of our bullpen. We had Chris McHugh with a disgusting changeup, which is harder on lefty sometimes than a lefty facing a lefty that doesn't have a good angle or a nasty sweeper. But you'd like to have both. So the ultimate pitching staff obviously is being able to do both, but you won't. It's important. I've always thought like, hey, you need a quality lefty that you can really go to in those big situations. But again, Dalton was good, just probably a little bit better against righties than he was lefties because he wasn't a breaking ball guy. He just had an elite fastball. But I feel like it's important, and with this staff, I feel like we have a chance there. I do feel like Boaz is probably going to be a starter, but again, it's best for our team. I'll put him in the bullpen. But we have some lefties that I think can compete to match up with some guys. Maybe like 2011, we would go to Tate Parrish. Maybe like 2008, we go to Brian Moran. So that's what you're looking for on the staff.
Indeed. Last question or serious question. Tell me about this NC State matchup on Thursday, the 16th. It sounds like a great fun time for fans.
Yeah, definitely.
How competitive do you think it'll be? Because it's NC State, but also what are you trying to get out of it for everybody?
Well, to answer your first question, I got text right away from former players that said it's never been just a scrimmage. So I don't have to tell you who those players are, but that's just, it's going to be competitive. But it should be competitive today for one inning. I tell our guys, like, if you're not competing, you might as well not go out there. But when you play NC State at Durham Athletic Park, it's the end of our fall, close to the end of their fall. I'm looking forward to watching it. What I want to get out of this is see what the young guys do in that situation. Because we've shut down the DeCaros, the Lynches, the Olin Johnsons. Percival's not throwing. Matthias is not throwing. Potentially some other guys that you just mentioned may not throw. So, you're talking that could be 8 pitchers that are in your top 10. So how are these guys that we're going to put in this situation that haven't been in this situation on the mound going to react? And then how are these position players that are new at UNC, going to react in that environment against that quality team because they're going to be really, really good. So I'm really excited about that. I don't, it's strange as a coach when you go, for me, to ever go into a game where technically you don't, the loss or the win, it doesn't, like we lost to Vanderbilt at home in 2022, but we went to a super regional and won the ACC championship. And Vanderbilt got knocked out of their own regional, I think, that year. So that, but it's so good to see your guys, the better the opponent, the better atmosphere, to see the heartbeat and just to see how they're going to perform in that situation.
If they're keeping score, you want to win, right?
There's no doubt about it. Yeah, our guys know that that's clear here. Like you're playing for the wrong guy and the wrong coaching staff. When you go out there and there's another uniform out there, you're not trying to take care of business. So we'll definitely do that, and that's going to be the goal. So I'm excited about it. It's the last day, really. We have a rain date available on Friday. But, man, we've gone hard, and our guys have really gotten after it. They're a little bit banged up. That's part of the fall. They're lifting. So I'm really proud of them, and I'm excited for them. Fall break, I think, starts on a Wednesday, and then they'll have the NC State game, and then they'll have that weekend. Then we'll go right back in to the weight room, but we'll take a little bit of a baseball break because we started the first day of classes.
I got one more. Well, I'm not going to tell you who said it.
I'm good. I'm in no rush. I don't have anybody to get ready. We're just playing one inning today.
Well, we'll sit here and talk all day. Let me ask you then. I had somebody that you're very familiar with. I'm not going to say who it was, at least not on the air, said this pitching staff could be as good or better than last year's.
I mean, we had a pitcher go 14-0. So that's a great statement, but I mean, that's old big boy Jake Knapp. We went to eat at Al's the other night. Like, man, what a great story. But he won every time. And when you win on Friday every time, chances of winning a series are pretty good. Potentially, yeah. We talked to the staff not long ago that they could be extremely talented and deep. But you can't have depth unless people buy into their roles. And they have to buy into doing what's best for the team. And sometimes that's not what they think's best for them individually. So for us to be exactly where we want to go, we'll have some really talented guys that won't be starting. Can they embrace that? Can they become great relievers? Can Lynch make a transition from going to a reliever to a complete starter? Those type of things. But I am excited about it. I'm excited for Coach Gaines and Coach Hal. All of us will work together, but they definitely have a chance, but they still got a ways to go. They got to get better. This post fall is important. They got to get stronger. They have to get more durable. And there has to be no distractions away from the field. So we'll see.
I'll tell you who said it after we get off this air. I don't want to spoil it, but so I mean, 8 to 10 pitchers is where you've usually been in your rotation, and we've talked about them over the course of this. But since you said you had more time, I want to ask: is that just the way you like to do it, or is that the easier way to manage it, or is that just how it works out sometimes?
I think, Tom, that's just how it works out. I've done a lot of research on it. As you know, I just love the game. Even if you have an ultra deep staff, the appearances may go down a little bit for a guy like a McDuffie last year. But you're still going to use your best guys in the highest leverage situations if they're available. And if your starters are really good, you look at a guy like Jake Knapp, in 2006, we played the national championship my first year as a pitching coach. You got 3 guys out there at 100 innings apiece. Well, there's 300 innings. And you're probably around 600, maybe a little less if you play in Omaha and in the national championship. So it's not necessarily how I would like to have I like to have what you want as a pitching staff, where you're beating the brakes off someone on Tuesday and it's 14-1, and you bring somebody in, the other team's like, how in the heck is this guy throwing 2 innings? Because, that means, hey, you got depth, and those guys will probably be really, really good. They'll get good experience. And then next year they go from throwing 20 innings, like a Brett Daniels did in his career here. In 2018, he was one of our best guys. Look at a guy like Cam Seagraves, who we hadn't talked a lot, arguably has some of the best stuff on our staff. What if he takes a step? Last year he threw 25 innings, right around maybe 30. But I think he's capable of being a starter or a reliever that throws 55 innings. But the deeper you have, the depth allows you on the pitching staff to not use guys as much and to not wear them down. So that's what we're hoping for.
And I mean, Coach Fox was a big matchup guy. Felt like he was a matchup guy more than you have been, as far as one pitcher, one batter, and all that stuff. Is that accurate, or do you see it differently there?
Yeah, I don't really think. I mean, I was a pitching coach, and Coach pretty much leaned on me to do a lot of that.
Well, there you go. So it was you doing it.
Yeah. I think it's the makeup of the pitching staff, and that's my favorite part of being a head coach. Every team's different. My job as a head coach is to figure out how to get the most out of this team. But the same thing as the pitching staff. Every pitching staff is different. So what Coach Gaines and Coach Howard are trying to do is say, okay, how do we maximize this pitching staff for them to be the best they can be? And I could see that happening some. We've had some staffs where we couldn't match up with you. That 2011 team was one of my favorite teams to coach. Brian Gaines and Jesse Wiersbicki were seniors on that staff. We had a guy named Tate Parrish, had a ton of appearances, but maybe 20 innings. We had a nasty breaking ball. He'd get lefties out, and then we go to a righty like Shane Taylor and Andrew Smith. Same thing on this staff. I think we could go to a Jackson Rose to get a lefty out, and then go to a Talon Holiday to get a righty out, and that could definitely happen. It'll slow the game down a little bit, but I don't care if we win.
Yeah, exactly. What's it like when you put a guy in there to go get an out and he gives up a 4-pitch walk? Tell me those conversations.
The older you get in the conversation, I mean, you, you don't want to. The conversation is you just make the change. And in all reality, he sure wasn't trying to throw those 4 balls, and you're not putting them out there. It was so much fun going to that Cubs game because I got to be a fan. I'm still thinking along with like, what is Council doing? What is Mike Schilt doing? Who's from North Carolina? Who, is managing the Padres, but it's a lot different in there. I'm thinking to myself, well, why did he do this? And I'm like, well, wait a second. I don't even think like that. All of a sudden, I'm thinking like a fan. They know why they're doing it. They've seen it. They've seen it in practice. They've seen it here. They've seen it there. And sometimes you have to make that gut decision, and you're the hero or the goat, and you just got to live with it.
We're having fun here, but I want to ask you not a serious question, but maybe not as a fun question. After the season ends like it did last year, how much time do you spend thinking, what if I'd have done this or that? And how much do you learn from those situations?
You definitely think, every brain, every coach is going to think, what could we have done better when you lose, for sure. The challenge is to be mature enough to say, what could we have done better even when you win? So I try to do that all the time. The way the landscape is now, I barely could think. You lose a heartbreaker like that, and you've got your players who are devastated. But you have 2 kids off the transfer portal scheduled to visit the next day, hoping that you were celebrating and going to Omaha. One of those was Jake Schaffner, who right now would play every day for us. So you have to be to flip that switch quickly too. Just part of it is being a coach. But I'm constantly, you ask what keeps me up at night, I'm constantly thinking about what are we not prepared for? I'm watching the Dodgers the other night. They run that will play, and I'm like, man, we need to potentially have that play. Even though it's a big gamble play, that's something that could get us out of a big jam, that could help us win a game. But like little things, you go back and you dissect a lot, and what you can learn a ton. And unfortunately, we all learn probably more from failure. You dissect it more. But you try to dissect it all the time, even when you win. But from that Arizona series, I did have time to go back and take a look at positioning. What move here, what move there. And then when you do that and you feel pretty good about them, well, you just move on. But even if you don't feel pretty good about them, you say, okay, if we're in that position again, which we hope to be, we're gonna have more success, because and you have to take that extreme ownership and say, at the end of the day, if you are the head coach, you signed up for it, and you're the one that has to make the decisions in the biggest moments. So I try to go back and look at that and say, okay, the thing that stuck out the most to me was the bunt, not the mistake on the double play ball, but were we exactly where we needed to be on the bunt? We knew they were going to bunt. We had our bunt defense on, but we talked about that. We took a screenshot of it. We talked about the positioning. Okay, how can we maybe be in a little better position where that's a little bit of an easier play, even on a perfect bunt? So that's what you do. But it eats at you. That's for sure. It eats at you when you're not the last team standing.
Absolutely. Do you think, and this, you always want to win. You always want to win big. Do you think winning big in that situation in game 1, maybe that's not the best thing in the world?
People ask me that. I don't think so. I think our guys, they're all been here long enough. That team last year, they knew it was going to be hard. Anytime you win like that, it can be in the regular season. It can be on Friday night against a no-name team early on, or double midweek. The next game is going to be a 1-run game. It's just baseball. It's just the way it works. I think the national championship 3 years ago, Florida beat LSU by like 20, and then LSU turned around and beat them by 15 or something. I don't, so I don't think so. I think at the end of the day, I'll take that every time. We get to a super regional this year and we win. What did we win? I don't know what we won. We smoked them. I'll want to smoke them again. We're going to try to smoke them the next day.
So, people always say everything. They just thought it was going to be easy and all that stuff. It is not like that.
That's very misleading. You don't ever, at that time of year, ain't nobody thinks it's going to be easy.
Yeah, and I was impressed with the Arizona team. I mean, those dudes came. They could have easily packed it up too. So,
They're
you
very
know,
balanced. Had some really high draft picks.
yeah,
Um,
so everybody has
position.
scholarships too.
Yeah, you got to play. I think back more to like the game of baseball is so unique from the standpoint of. Yeah, I'm not saying it's just because I coach baseball, but it's the hardest to win the championship because you face a guy like we faced 2017 at Davidson, and he's got it going. You can't score, and all of a sudden it's the seventh inning, and you're in the game, and then you're a blooper and a single away, and you look up and you lost to a 4 seed. And if you follow college baseball, it happens more in baseball than any other sport. Teams that just that you run into that arm, and your arm better be matching them.
It only takes one dude to be dealing
One
to
dude.
shut you down,
Yep.
and it's not like that. I mean, in basketball, one guy can get hot, yes, but there's four others out there. In baseball, you go up against a Jake Knapp on a Friday night, you might have some trouble. What do you
Yeah.
think of your schedule this year? I know it's not out, and when does that come out? But also, how do you think about the how it sort of shakes out in the conference? You go two Clemson, two Notre Dame, and two Cal, and then your other series are in the state. Obviously, is always a good thing. But what, I mean, I know it doesn't matter. You play who's on the schedule, but when you
Yeah.
look at it, what do you think about it?
Um, I think it's gonna be a hard schedule. I mean, I think we open up with Indiana. We got East Carolina home neutral, or home neutral, home, whatever that is, and ACC is a challenge. You got to travel. I think no matter what, it's going to be difficult. But I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the challenge. We're going to embrace going to California. Instead of being like, oh, we got to go to California. You know what? We'll get out there. We'll make the most of it. We'll see what we can see in California. Hopefully, take care of business and get the heck out of there. But I haven't dissected it, Tommy. I've worked myself hard till our guys on the most unique, the best competitors are able to be in the moment and enjoy that moment. So I've worked really harder every year to really enjoy every day and focus on the fall. And I feel like we've done a really good, like our staff and our players, they bought into that. I hadn't thought too much about what's ahead. But it's going to be a fun schedule for sure. It'll be a challenging schedule. The only thing I'm hoping is it's just not cold. This fall's been phenomenal. I'm looking out there today. It's like perfect. And I'm like, golly. I was working on the post fall yesterday. I was like, man, we start January, whatever. It's going to be cold. It's the only thing I don't like about college baseball.
Yeah, hopefully it's not cold and snowy in Boston College like it's been before. We'll be
Man.
there covering it. We're going to go to as much as possible. I can't promise you'll see us out there in California, but definitely in South Bend and doing all that kind of stuff. It's fun to cover baseball. It's fun to watch ball. And I'll tell you this, as a person who's grown up around sports all my life, there's nothing better than sitting in the stands watching a baseball game. I mean, you
That's
talked about
awesome.
that at the
Yeah.
Cubs. So
Well, I tell
it
you
is.
what, we're so thankful for our fans. I mean, it has grown. I'm watching us against Walter State and looking at that crowd for a scrimmage, and I'm just thankful to our fans for that. To recognize we got good kids too that play hard, play the right way. It helps us. The bigger crowds we have, even if it's cold, if they show up, it helps our players to see. The more people in the stands. And we always say the less green we see up there, the better.
And you had a lot of alums back for that
Yes, we
Walter
did.
State game, so that
Yep.
had to be a blast for you guys. Anyway, Scott, I'll let you get out of here. Get outside and enjoy some of that weather. It's always a pleasure. Hopefully, we do this many more times. Talk
Yeah,
about Florida
absolutely. Thank
baseball.
y'all for y'all's coverage.
Yeah,
Have a good
absolutely.
rest of your weekend. Or
Yeah.
what is today? Thursday?
Today is
Thursday.
Thursday.
Have a good weekend ahead.
Take care, Coach.
Thank you, sir.
Shout out to head coach Scott Forbes for taking the time to join me here on a Thursday. He's got his hands full coaching that baseball team, but as you've seen and you've heard and you've seen over the years, he and his coaching staff have it pretty under control there in Boschheimer Stadium as we roll into the 26th season. To be here before you know it. Shout out to Johnny T-Shirt, JohnnyT-Shirt.com. Sports, of course, sponsors of the show and great friends of Inside Carolina. If you're a premium subscriber, and as you've seen, some of the baseball content has moved to the premium side, you get that 10% off your Johnny T-Shirt order. Go to InsideCarolina.com. Sign up for your new On3 screen name on 3 subscription and get to be a part of the Inside Carolina Premium community, I guess, if you want to call it. There's a ton of content. I mean, obviously there's a ton of football and basketball content, but baseball, we're knocking out field hockey stories. We're doing all of that coverage here at Inside Carolina. The same great content, same great folks, same great site at InsideCarolina.com. Everybody stay safe.